What's going on, everyone? So, Avengers Endgame is here. 22 films in the making, and now we have a conclusion to the Infinity Saga. Pretty special. I didn't think I was going to see something like this on this grand of a scale ever, really, on the big screen. The other Avengers films are smaller, more contained films, I suppose. They are leading to a bigger picture, especially Infinity War, leading directly into Endgame. But I didn't think that something on this grand of a scale would ever come to be. There's so many characters, so much going on, and it has to wrap up so many storylines as well. And I think it does it, for the most part, very good. I said that I don't really consider this film to be a film or a movie. I think it's more of an event. It's so grand in scale, it's doing so many things, it's just so different to what a normal movie would be. Infinity War is more of a film. It sets up all this. It's the equivalent of like a Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Part 2 was the payoff, of course, with the Battle of Hogwarts. This is very similar. Infinity War is all the setup, all the battle, leading to the end battle, I suppose. And our heroes lost, and now they've got to take down Thanos. Well, that's what I thought the story was going to be, and it turns out that it wasn't. So this is going to be my spoiler discussion. I'm going to talk about the points of the film, what I liked, what I didn't like, and just pretty much a story breakdown. What some things mean, what happens. Just get into the nitty gritty, the spoilerific details of Avengers Endgame. So let's get stuck into it. So the opening of the film is Hawkeye with his family having a barbecue just out at the ranch that we saw in Avengers Age of Ultron. And yeah, he's with his daughter. They're shooting their bow and arrow. Calls a Hawkeye, which is a sweet little moment. He turns around and his family has turned to dust. This is a very important way to open the film. It re-establishes the stakes of what happened in Infinity War to a character that in the past hasn't been fantastic, but I think his story progression and his characterization has been very impressive, and it's a huge improvement of what we saw back in 2012 with the first Avengers film. And I really like that he's become sort of the heart of the Avengers team, and I like that this is the way it starts. I thought it was quite sad, and yeah, it just established what we already knew, but re-established it to this new story, which I liked. We then cut to Iron Man and Nebula in space, which was pretty cool. They're just doing things. They're playing the old put your fingers up and shoot a goal, pretty much, with a piece of paper or a piece of foil, I think it is. That was pretty cool. Just seeing Nebula being, I suppose, normal. She's interacting with people in ways that she would have never had those sort of interactions before. We get the trailer dialogue of Tony talking to Pepper through his helmet, which I thought was pretty cool. And yeah, I really liked that dynamic that was established early on in the film. I thought it was pretty good. And I liked that we picked up, I think it was 22 days later. So yeah, it's happened. Tony looks damaged. He looks sick as well. He hasn't eaten a great deal. And I just really like the little smaller moments between those two characters. They're the only two in space. Now we get something that was a bit of a shock, I suppose. Captain Marvel comes and saves the day. She's obviously met the Avengers team, I guess, in their post-credit scene from Captain Marvel. That is their introduction to her. We don't really see it happen here. We just know that they've already met, so I guess that was the Captain Marvel post-credit scene. She's super powerful, we already know this, and this scene, I don't know, she's Captain Plot Convenience at this point. She turns up when the plot best needs her. I'm glad that she didn't stay around for the whole movie because I think it would have been a cop-out and would have been too easy. I don't hate her. I think Brie Larson's a very good actress. I like the movie, the Captain Marvel movie. I didn't love it, but I did like a lot of elements of it. I just think she's overpowered, and especially if you introduce someone this powerful in this universe, it becomes a bit of an issue. But luckily she isn't in this film a great deal, but this is our introduction to her in the film. Or the event, as I've called it. So she saves Tony, brings him back. Tony and Nebula brings them back to the Avengers base. We see a sick Tony get off. And we establish here, after Tony and Captain America they still have a bit of bad blood here. Tony goes off at Steve and says pretty much, yeah, I wanted the suit of armor around the world and no one really agreed with me. But they say, you tried it, didn't work. Ultron did not work and it caused more destruction than anything else. So at this point, I think that they understand each other, Steve and Tony, but they just don't get along still. So I thought that was good to reestablish the fact that they actually haven't seen each other really since Civil War. So it's nice that they've, you know, kept that plot detail in them because it's important. And then pretty much they say, yep, well, we're going to try and get Thanos, but we don't know where he is. And then Rhodey says, Rhodey says to Nebula, because Nebula's like, oh, well, yeah, he had this plan. He said that he was going to do this. And Rhodey's like, well, he has a retirement plan. That's cute, which is pretty funny. And then they're like, yeah, let's go and kill this son of a bitch. Avengers Endgame pops up on screen. So that's the first 5 minutes of the film done. They rock up to Thanos, and Thanos is like a farmer, which I thought was pretty funny. He's like picking up fruits and stuff and making himself a stew. He just looks pretty content, just living his life. He's all burnt though, which he wasn't at the end of Infinity War. Then we find out that he was trying to use the stones to get rid of the other stones, so he's destroyed all the stones. So there's no bringing everyone back. It's a pretty dire way to start the film, but we knew that that's the way that this was going to be. And I think that was established well as it reestablishes the stakes here. So like that, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're gonna do. They just went up there and they wanted to get these, reverse the snap, and yeah, everything will be back to normal. But that's not how it happens. And yeah, Thor kills Thanos in the first 5 minutes of the movie. He goes for the head, chops off his head, and Thanos is dead. We then get a timestamp on the film 5 years later. The world's gone on, and yeah, we reintroduced to Captain America, who is running support groups. This actually reminded me a lot of the TV show The Leftovers, which deals with after 2.5% of the population disappear, it's everyone who's left over, hence the title, and how that they go on with their lives after these people from their lives have, disappeared. And I think that the movie does a pretty good job in a short period of time to establish that things don't get easy. You're literally missing 50% of the planet. You don't have people operating machinery, so we cut across the bay of San Francisco, where we see that we just see that everything's not the same. Like there's sort of this soft wind sound as well, just a good sound design to sort of establish, it's pretty quiet. The roads aren't as busy. Steve and Natasha say that the water's not as busy in his sort of pot of whales. And I just think it's established well that this has had a rippling effect across the world as we know it, but also the galaxy, which we find out because Natasha's talking with the remaining Avengers. They're all on their missions across the galaxy, and she's trying to give herself purpose, I suppose. That there's no real threat. There's no threats at the moment, so you need to relax. But she can't do that because it's what she knows. She doesn't have anything else. We find out that Clint, Hawkeye, has been killing drug cartels down in Mexico, which is pretty full on. But I like that element of his character. He lost a lot. They all lost a lot, but he lost his family, so he doesn't have anyone. He hasn't talked to the Avengers, so this is just what he's doing. This is his coping mechanism. He's killing bad guys in brutal fashion, apparently, from the dialogue we get from Rhodey and Natasha. So yeah, it's pretty full on. But yeah, I just kept thinking of The Leftovers in this situation. We then cut to Ant-Man. As we know, we're stuck in the quantum realm at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. He works out what happens with Thanos and stuff after he's brought back after a rat, brings him back from the van. He's a bit shocked. We find a memorial at San Francisco near the bridge, and it has the vanished, everyone that's disappeared, and he finds his own name there and he's shocked. He has no clue what's happening. He sees that his daughter's name's not there, rocks up at her house and finds that it's been 5 years since he's been in the quantum realm, which was a bit of a shock. I think it's kind of sad too, because he's missed a lot of Casey's life, his daughter, because he was in prison. Now he's missed 5 years, but it was a bit sad to see that this was a different angle once again. And yeah, we haven't really had any humor yet. It's just been the classic, everything's dour. What are we gonna do? And it's not in typical Marvel fashion, which I liked, because this is a lot different to what they have had to deal with before. So I thought that was clever, and I really like Ant-Man in this movie. I think he's used quite well. He gets this emotional arc at the start of the film, but then he's played a lot for humor later on. But it's the best way to use his character, because Paul Rudd is fantastic and he's very funny. So I really like that. He then proposes to Cap and Black Widow that they go back in time. He explains the quantum realm, rocks up at the Avengers headquarters, and says, "Yeah, we can go back in time." They want to do anything that they can to get back. So they then approach Tony, who we then find out has a 5-year-old daughter, Morgan. The conflict being, of course, that if they reverse the snap, he could lose what he's had. He's married to Pepper now, and that they have a daughter. So he's got a lot to lose now. And I like that they established that conflict there. And they're like, well, we want to do it. We got a shot. We've got to take it. But he doesn't want to do that because he's worried about what he will lose. But then, in typical Tony fashion, he's then seen in the next scene that night trying to figure out time travel, and he does. So he works out what the go is, and yeah, he has a conversation with Pepper. I can let it go, and she's like, "You can't." I know you can't. You haven't let it go in the last 3 movies. I can't. Yeah, you just can't let something go. So yeah, that's how that comes about, and Tony works out, well, I've got to do it. So then we see that the remaining Avengers, that we've got at the moment, so Cap, Ant-Man, and Black Widow all approach Professor Hulk. Banner and Hulk look like they've worked out what was going on, and they're working in unison from Infinity War. Hulk explains that he lost twice. He lost as Hulk, and then he lost as Banner. So now he's worked out a way to work in unison with one another. Of course, using Banner's sentience and mind, but in Hulk's body. This was a bit of a disappointment for me. This has been an arc that's been built up for quite some time, and the Russos explained that this was the finality to Hulk's arc, but I didn't really like that it happened off screen. I think I would have liked to have seen that established in this movie. I understand that it's a 3-hour runtime, so you've got to do what you can with the time that you've got, because there's so much going on. But I think that this was a bit of a letdown. One of 2 letdowns with his character, which I'll get into a bit later. But yeah, I was a bit disappointed in this. I did like Professor Hulk. I'm going to call him that. But I just don't think that it worked as well as what I would have liked it to have worked. Tony meets back with the remaining Avengers. They're giving Cap his shield back, sort of burying their bad blood from Civil War, which was a nice moment. And Tony says, yeah, we need a team. So then we see Rhodey, Nebula, and Rocket rock up. And then Rocket and Hulk go to approach Thor, who is living in New Asgard now, which is pretty funny. I like that they've established that New Asgard's now on Earth, and it's just whoever's left from the Asgardians, because they were already decimated before the snap. So who knows how many are left at this point. We see Valkyrie again, which is pretty cool, because I really like her. And yeah, they go to recruit Thor, and we rock up at Thor's place, and Thor is a slob. He's an alcoholic, and I think that was really funny. I think that it was a different way to use Thor's character. We didn't know that this was going to happen. Have you seen the posters and everything? They've got short-haired Thor, but we've got long-haired, long-beard Thor with a big beer belly, eating chocolate and wearing sunglasses and fingerless gloves and drinking beer. I thought it was a bit of a shock, and a lot of people probably won't like it because it's what they do to Thor in this movie, but it makes sense. He lost a lot, because if he had done the right thing the first time, then, they would have won. They wouldn't have lost to Thanos. So I can understand where he's coming from and why he's so beaten up. He lost a lot in that week's period of time when you think about it. His sister kills his dad. His sister kills kills the Warriors 3 or the Warriors 5. No, it was Warriors 3. Kills the Warriors 3. Asgard is destroyed. Then the rest of his people are just slaughtered by Thanos. He loses his brother, his best friend. He loses so much in just a period of time. It's such a short period of time. So he's just broken at this point. So I can understand in a realistic sense of why he's reverted to this and why he doesn't want to help. We see Korg and Meek in this scene too. I love Korg, Taika Waititi, very funny. There's a Fortnite reference here because of the crossover at the moment. It is what it is. Fortnite's a big part of pop culture at the moment, so it makes sense. And yeah, Rocket convinces him to come on the ship and let's go back and let's do this. Natasha goes to Tokyo to recruit Clint, aka Hawkeye. He's wearing the Ronin outfit here, and we get a really cool scene of him just like fighting a member of the Yakuza, I'm guessing, in like a brutal sword fight. And I thought that was really cool. I really like what they did with Hawkeye here, and I hope that the Hawkeye TV show actually deals with this period of time because I think it'll be really cool. But yeah, I really liked what they did with him. I thought that was pretty awesome, and of course, Natasha's going to recruit him because they've got such a bond with one another. We then cut back and they establish the rules of time travel, which is pretty cool. They're different to the normal rules that we have. So pretty much the rules that are established from Professor Hulk are that once they go back in time, what happens to your past self doesn't affect the future. It just creates a new reality, which is pretty interesting. I think that's the basic time travel rule these days compared to like Back to the Future and stuff where like, Marty would disappear or something. So I thought that was interesting. And I like that they established the rules because it was good. And that way we understand what's going on. I never thought I'd see a hot tub time machine reference in a movie like this. Thought that was really weird and quite funny. Like a time travel reference that hot tub time machine is now, a part of pop culture, which is just strange. I like the movie. It's just interesting. Then after that, they try and work out where the Infinity Stones are. They work out that the ether Thor ran into, of course, in Thor: The Dark World. So the ether is on Asgard. They work out that Peter Quill got the Power Stone in Guardians of the Galaxy 1 in 2014 on Morag. And if you work out the right time, there was 3 Infinity Stones in New York, which is true. So yeah, they pretty much branch off. They choose their team. So Cap, Iron Man, Ant-Man, and Hulk go to New York to retrieve the Time, Mind, and Space Stones. We get some great comedy here as well when these 3 go off together. I really like that we see the events of the Avengers in 2012 from a different perspective. I thought that was pretty cool. We get some good comedy here. I really like the scene where Cap goes back into the elevator, reminiscent very much so of the Winter Soldier, or Russo brothers' first foray into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I thought that was pretty cool. I like that he whispered into Jasper Sitwell's ear and says, "Hail Hydra." Thought that was pretty funny. It was just a really good callback. And yeah, the Ant-Man and Iron Man don't succeed in getting the Tesseract, and they have to go back to 1970s New York. Not New York, sorry, New Jersey. So that was pretty cool. I like that because we know that they're going to go to S.H.I.E.L.D., the underground operation of S.H.I.E.L.D. that we saw in the Winter Soldier when Hydra was growing out of it, of course. But so they go back to New Jersey, and we get a really nice closure here for Tony. He gets to meet his father in this period of time, and I really like that. It was a nice closure to his character. There was a nice moment at the end where he gives him a hug. And we see Jarvis as the butler, which is a nice comic book callback. My God. We then have the Nebula and Rhodey in 2014 going to Morag to get the Power Stone before Quill does. I like this too. This is pretty funny. It's sure they probably get the least amount of screen time here, but I liked that. I don't think that they needed a great deal, so I thought that was pretty. It was pretty funny and it makes sense. We then cut to Hulk as well. Hulk going to Bleecker Street to get the Time Stone from the Ancient One, aka Tilda Swinton. And yeah, that was pretty good. It made sense because if these wizards were existing in this period of time, well, I keep calling them the magicians, wizards, whatever you want to call them, of course that they would be defending New York. So we get to see it from their perspective too, which was pretty cool. And pretty much Bruce says to her, "We need the stone," and she says no because this is what happens, explains the reality branch off, and he said, "Not if we return the stones." And she said, and then he says, "Why did Strange," she says no, and he says, "Why did Strange give up the stone then?" And she's like, "Oh, maybe I was wrong, here's the stone." yeah, fair enough. They've got another Infinity Stone, so at the moment they've got two. They go back to get more Pym particles, like I said, in the 1970s, Steve and Tony. So they go and get more Pym particles and get the Tesseract. And then we have Thor and Rocket go to Asgard to get the Reality Stone, aka the Ether, off Jane during the events of Dark World. Thor gets a bit of closure here with his mother, which was nice. It was quite lovely. He also gets his hammer back, and finds out he's still worthy. I thought that was a pretty nice moment too. He's got Stormbreaker and Mjolnir now, so that's pretty deadly. And then we have finally Hawkeye and Natasha have to go to Vormir to get the Soul Stone. We all know what that means. They have to lose something that they both love, both wanting to sacrifice themselves, and they have a bit of back and forth here where they're trying to jump over the edge of the cliff to get the Soul Stone. And neither one of them wants to do it, but they have to, but they both want to sacrifice themselves. We think that Hawkeye's done it, and he goes to jump, the slow motion shot of him jumping over the edge, but then Natasha does it too, and they're both over the edge. And then, yeah, Natasha dies. Black Widow is dead. And that was a bit of a shock to me because we've got the Black Widow solo movie coming out next year. So it makes me think that it's going to be a bit of a... It'll have to be a prequel. It's just going to have to be. But, yeah, just a bit shocking. I don't think it was as emotionally resonant as later events in the film, but I think that it wasn't. It was sad, and it's a nice sacrifice, I think. We then cut back to 2014 as well with Nebula, as Nebula from 2014 gets visions from the modern Nebula who's gone back in time as they're sharing the same network. So they see Thanos finds out 2014 Thanos finds out what happens to 2019 Thanos. He gets his head chopped off, and we understand now. Yeah, he understands now. It's his destiny. He's got to do what he's got to do, and yeah, he knows what happens, but he knows that he wins. So he finds out what they're trying to do by going back in time. So he's trying to get to the future to prevent any of this from happening, so that balance. Yeah, everything is still balanced. So I like that this is where they were going, because I thought if they didn't have a big bad fight at the end, then it would be a bit pointless. So of course Thanos has to come back, and this is the way that makes sense. And then Nebula kidnaps other Nebula, and 2014 Nebula goes back with the Avengers. So evil Nebula. Sorry, that's not very convoluted, but that's what happens, and it's quite hard to explain. The Avengers then, Professor Hulk puts on the gauntlet, snaps his fingers, and we find out that everyone has returned, which was sweet. There's no funeral scene or anything for Natasha when they get back, which is a bit sad considering what happens at the end of the movie. But I guess she hasn't been as big a part of the team, but she is one of the original ones, so I think I would have liked to have seen a bit more happen there than just a little conversation by the river that lasts like 2 seconds. And that was the second most disappointing thing with the Professor Hulk storyline, is that they established like a love story between those two, and it just never really paid off. And they had a real connection in Age of Ultron. They had really good chemistry with one another too, so I would have liked to have seen a bit more payoff here. But it is what it is. Like I said, it's a very long movie, so you've got to, pick your battles. And obviously they just couldn't fit that into the story, maybe, or maybe it just didn't fit. Maybe it didn't make sense. Would have slowed down the pacing a little, so I can understand why it wouldn't be in that period of time. But there could have been a nod at the end of the film that maybe there was a bit of a funeral for her, but who knows? You can only speculate, I suppose. And then Nebula, 2014 Nebula, that's now in modern times, unleashes Thanos and his crew, and they rain down hell on the Avengers headquarters. When this happens, this is one of the gripes I have with the film, and it's something small, but it's just the landscape that appears after this area is destroyed. I don't know how big the area is that it's destroyed. The spaceship's huge, so I don't really understand the landscape, but it doesn't matter because it's just the area of the final battle. But I just didn't understand the landscape and what was really going on there with that. And it's such a weird thing to gripe about, and I'm not really griping about it because it is so small. But I just didn't really understand the landscape of what was going on. So pretty much after that happens, the Avengers are then scattered. Hawkeye with the Infinity Gauntlet. After Professor Hulk snaps his fingers, like I said, it burns all of them too. And yeah, Hawkeye's got the gauntlet now after the base was attacked. And they see Thanos down there just sitting by himself, so they're like, yeah, let's do it. So we see the original three, Thor, Cap, and Iron Man, go up against Thanos, and they start fighting him, which is pretty cool, pretty badass. And Thor's getting the shit beaten out of him, and he's on the ground, and yeah, we see Thor's hammer just fly past Thor, and I'm like, I wonder who. Captain America picks up Thor's hammer, which was fucking awesome. It was probably the coolest moment of the movie, just because it was payoff to Age of Ultron, of course, when Cap he moved it slightly when they were all trying to pick it up in Age of Ultron. So I thought it was a really nice payoff there, because yeah, I love Cap, and I just thought it was awesome. Seeing him wield Mjolnir was just awesome, and he's just like going toe to toe with Thanos. I'm like, that is really cool. But then Cap is just getting the snot beaten out of him. Then his shield's destroyed by Thanos's really strong blade, and yeah, it looks like no hope left. And then he unleashes his army, just like you see all the creatures, the worm things and stuff. Like his whole arsenal is just out there. And then we hear over the microphone, the earpiece, Cap on your left, and Falcon. Then all the Doctor Strange bubbles all appear, and all the characters all fall on the back in like one of the most epic shots. Like it's so incredibly cheesy hearing Cap say "Avengers assemble," and then they just all run towards Thanos' army with the music playing. Like it is so cheesy, but it's so cool. You just see so many people, like it's just so many characters all together again, which is just, it's nice. And we all knew this was coming, this big epic battle, and yeah, it is really, really cool. It's a nerdgasm, probably the biggest nerdgasm in cinema history. And I can understand it's fan service at its best, and this is exactly what everyone wanted, and they all got it. So yeah, props to them, because it's so huge in scale, and it's just so massive, but it's so awesome. Quill's back. Quill and Gamora have a bit of a chat. But of course it's Gamora, because I didn't mention that. Gamora is with Thanos, and then because of course in 2014 she was looking for the Infinity Stone, so she's evil Gamora from the first Guardians movie still. And then Quill and Gamora, they meet again, but of course they don't have the feelings that have been established. She doesn't love him at this point in time. Kicks him in the balls, and but she's good now. She's working with 2019, 2023 Nebula. 2024 Nebula. I don't know. The time travel stuff, yeah. But with modern Nebula. So Gamora and Nebula together again. And yeah, she meets Quill, which is nice. Captain Marvel returns here after the battleship just starts raining down on the armies. And again, she's just so powerful. She just tears apart this ship like it's nothing. And then she starts fighting Thanos, and Thanos headbutts her, and it just doesn't do anything. And I was like, oh, she's so powerful. She could just tear through him right now. Like, what is... Yeah, introducing someone... It's like having Superman. Superman's just such a... a green rock can hurt him. But like, you know, with her, I don't really know what her kryptonite is. Like, it's just so... Yeah, it's really weird. And I just think because she's so strong, I'm glad that she wasn't here during the movie. But the Power Stone hits her away, and we don't see her then for a while. But this led to a portion of the film that probably stirred up a bit of controversy, and it was when Spider-Man has the gauntlet, and they're all throwing it around to each other, and he's got it, and Captain Marvel's like walks past him and like says, "Oh, have you got something for me?" And he's like, "Hi, I'm Peter," and she's like, "Hey, Peter Parker." Takes the gauntlet, and then he's like, "Are you sure you're going to be able to do it?" And he's like, and then all the women assemble, and they all like follow her, let her go out and do her thing, and they're all following her, like covering her. And I thought that this scene, it didn't worry me too much. I understand exactly where it's coming from, with the way the state of Hollywood at the moment. I suppose I can understand why they would want to do something like this, but there was a few audible groans from the theater I was in both times. So I think that I can understand why people groaned a bit, because it is very cheesy and it's very over the top, and it's sort of hammering home a point, but it is what it is, and I expected them to do something like that. It was a callback to Infinity War, when the same sort of thing happened, when Black Widow was fighting one of the Black Order, and Elizabeth Olsen, Scarlet Witch was fighting one of the Black Order, and they're like, she's not alone, and there's like 5 of the women. It was a callback to that as well. So it made sense, but yeah, I just thought I'd mention it because there was a few groans in the cinema. Tony and Spider-Man get their reunion too in this scene, and it was very sweet. Gives him a hug. It was just nice because he knows that he succeeded in bringing him back. Strange and Tony are Tony asks Strange, he's like, is this it? Is this the 1 in the 14 million that you saw? Is this what, are we going to win? And then he just said, if I tell you, it won't happen, which is important. I'll get back to that in a second. Because what happens is, they're throwing down Iron Man, and Thanos are going toe-to-toe again. And yeah, he gets the gauntlet. Thanos gets the gauntlet, and he says, like at the start of the movie, I am inevitable. Goes to click his fingers, and nothing happens because all the gems are gone from the gauntlet, and Tony has them. And Tony says, I am Iron Man. Clicks his fingers and turns Thanos' army to dust. Thanos sits down and just knows that he's been defeated. He's lost. So that was interesting. I didn't think that was going to happen because Iron Man dies. And that is why Strange couldn't tell him, because I think if Strange had have told him in that moment, of course, like, you don't want to die. If he knew that he was going to die and that's how he wins, he'd ponder, oh shit, I've got my family now, like, I don't want to do that. So I think it made sense, and it was nice to set that up, I think, and it was set up in a very subtle way, because I didn't expect Tony to do that, because Tony's character has always been a selfish, self-involved character. So it was a nice finality to his arc, I think, that was set up in Iron Man 1. We've seen this finale now, and I really did like that. I thought that it was nice, and Doctor Strange gives him that little nod, and just in the battle, he just points his one. It gives him the one finger, just says one, so he knows that this is what he has to do, and he wouldn't know that yet if he was told, sort of thing. So I thought it was nice that he had that sacrifice. Yeah, so they win, and we get the funeral scene where everyone assembles for Tony's funeral, pretty much. We see his first reactor that Pepper gave him in Iron Man 1, reading proof that Tony Stark has a heart, floating out on the lake at their lodge. I like too, there was a little Easter egg thing here too, where the kid from Iron Man 3 was all grown up, and I thought that was really nice. It was such a small detail, but I really liked that he was there, because yeah, they did have a bit of a bond, and it was, a character that was important in that film, and yeah, I thought that was really nice. Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch are talking, and he says, I hope she knows that it wasn't for nothing, of course referring to Natasha. And Scarlet Witch replies, she knows, they both do, referring to Vision. I like that, because it was an acknowledgement of both of the characters, and like I said, I think that's why they couldn't really have a funeral for Black Widow, because it's such an epic scale, and there's so many things going on that it would have slowed down the pacing a bit. And yeah, I think that's enough. That was enough for me anyway, because like I said, I didn't really have the connection with her character that a lot of people would have had, but I think it would have given fans enough of her for it to mean something. And then we sort of get the future of what's going to happen with the Avengers. So Thor joins the Asgardians of the Galaxy, as he calls it, which is a perfect fit. Thor in space is so much fun. Look at all the fun we had in Ragnarok. Like, him with that Guardians team is just a perfect fit, and I cannot wait to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Because, yeah, I just think it'd be great. And Valkyrie becomes the Queen of New Asgard, which was nice too. I'd like to see a bit more of her, and I think we might, which would be good. But when Thor boards the ship, the Guardian ship, we see that Quill's still looking for Gamora, so makes us think that she's probably still out there, which is nice. And I think that might be the plot of Guardians 3, is them looking for her. And I like that Thor's been given another purpose now, and it's not so much of a grand purpose, it's just him being with this group of characters. They're very funny, and Thor's been played for a bit more comic relief now, and I think he fits that because of how he's a god. So I think that playing it down a bit and being a bit more self-aware is better than playing him up to be what they did in the first Thor movie, which was, a stoic, not very charismatic character. And I think they do it differently here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. Then we get the real gut puncher of the film, for me anyway. So Cap has to return all the stones to the desired timelines that they got them from when they went back in time. we see him going. He goes back, has the hammer. Yeah, goes back in time, and yeah, they couldn't bring him back, and they try to bring him back. They try to bring him back, and they don't know what's going on. Then we cut to Sam and Bucky looking over the lake and seeing an old man sitting there. Sam approaches him and says, "I can't tell if something's gone horribly wrong or horribly right," along those lines. And he said, "I decided to get some of that life that Tony was always telling me to get." And yeah, so he stayed behind in 1970s and lived his life, which I think was very, very beautiful. I really liked that. It was a very nice way to end his character. He was my favorite character, and I liked that the way that him and Tony's story ends. Tony ending, of course, being someone who didn't, I suppose, he got his life eventually, and he lived that portion of his life, and he got the best parts of it. And Cap never really got that, and him going back in time and living his life just let him grow old and be happy. And we get a scene where where Steve hands over the reins of Captain America to the Falcon, which is awesome because I think it was a nice little nod too, because Bucky behind him nods and just says, "Yeah, no, you take it." And I thought it was just sweet. And we're getting a TV show with those two, so that's going to be really cool now that Sam is Captain America. So yeah, I really, really, really liked that, and I think it just ended real sweet with just Steve and Peggy holding each other, and in 1970s, and just knowing that everything was okay and he lived his life. And I thought that was really beautiful and a great way to end his character. He didn't have to die; he just got to live his life. So, like I said, this movie isn't perfect. It's something I didn't score initially when I posted my review, because I just didn't know what to score it. And I think now, thinking of it, I would give it a 9 out of 10. I do have a few issues with it, but like I said, it's an event. It's something so big that it sort of transcends being a film or a movie. It's pure popcorn entertainment. And I think the little nitpicks, like you can nitpick the time travel aspect to pieces, and you can nitpick the Deus Ex Machina, like the plot conveniences as well. But all these movies have these things. They all have these plot conveniences. They all have these little issues. But they don't really matter. I don't think at this grand of a scale they do matter too much. Because I think that the creatives behind the scenes would know exactly what's going on, and they would know that these plot conveniences exist and whatnot. And I just think that the way that it ends is just it's very sweet, and it's just a nice bow. I would like them to cool it off for a while, but of course it's not going to happen. We have Spider-Man Far From Home coming in July, which will take place after these events, which will be interesting to see how the world continues on now, because everyone's back now. So it's going to be very interesting, I think. I'd like to talk a bit now about the MCU moving forward and where I think that it's going to go. So we have the Black Widow prequel film, which will hit cinemas next year. Apparently, it's a bit of a spy espionage thriller. It's rated MA too in Australia and R in America, which is interesting. Apparently, that's the rumor anyway. And David Harbour's playing the villain, which is pretty cool. And I think it'll be a prequel because she's dead now. So I wouldn't like them to bring her back, because I think that it would undo the meaning of this last film. So I'd really like to see that. And I think that that's the best way to go about it. I'm not a huge fan of prequels, but I think in this case it could work. I like Scarlett Johansson, so we'll see what happens. The Eternals is coming out too. So far we have in the cast Angelina Jolie, rumoured anyway, and Kumail Nanjiani. I don't know much about the Eternals, so I can't really tell you a lot about it, but I'm interested to see what happens there too. They're obviously an intergalactic team or something, so be very interesting. I don't mind going a bit more into space, doing different worlds and whatnot, so I think it'll be very interesting. We have a few TV shows in the works. Vision and Scarlet Witch apparently is filming this fall, it was announced, so their adventure, I would imagine, would be between the events of Civil War and Infinity War. I think it would just be a mini-series. It might just be one season, which I'm okay with. Might give a bit more finality to these characters. And I think if you flesh them out a bit more, when the events of Infinity War happen, when you're watching them, they might mean a little more. I always thought that the Vision scene was emotional because she's killing someone she obviously loves. So I like that, and I think that if we get a bit more time with these characters, it would be very sweet and very nice. We also have Shang-Chi. I don't know a lot about this character either. I know that Donnie Yen is rumored to play Shang-Chi, a Chinese character, I believe, which is pretty cool. It's expanding into that international market as well. And I think because the Chinese cinema goers absolutely love the Avengers and everything, it's nice that they're rewarding them in a way by giving them a Chinese character. So I think that's nice, and I think that would be very, very good to see. We also have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, or now the As Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that would be very interesting. I just think that's my prediction of the plot. We had the setup for Adam Warlock in the last Guardians film, so maybe that'll pay off a bit, but I think it'll be them looking for Gamora and Thor, of course, joining it. But like I said, I would like them to take a little bit of a break. It's not going to happen because money, but I think it would be nice to sort of let this sink in. And if it was the final chapter and they weren't to make another movie, I'd honestly be okay with that. I really like that this is a ribbon on such an important story arc. But, again, I'm excited to see more, but it's just that I would like them to, let it rest for a little bit before going into the next chapter or the next phase. But that's sort of where Marvel is heading. Doctor Strange 2, of course, is in development too, and we might get a bit more of Mordor. Modor, I think, is the villain that was set up at the end of the first Doctor Strange movie, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. And he's a pretty big bad too in the comics, so it'll be pretty interesting to see how that plays into it. And I like the idea of Stephen Strange being, front and center with Black Panther and Captain Marvel moving forward, because I think that they're good characters and I would like to see more of them. I haven't loved their respective films. Doctor Strange was, a carbon copy of Iron Man 1, I've said before. It's entertaining as hell, but it's definitely a very similar plotline to the redemption of a rich asshole. Black Panther, of course, will get a sequel. That movie made so much money and it's become a cultural milestone. Captain Marvel is entering the same status, I suppose, as well. And I think that's where Marvel's heading, is sort of these characters that they've set up now with Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Black Panther, the Guardians of the Galaxy continuing, and Doctor Strange. And I think we'll get a third chapter in the Ant-Man films because they've spent a lot of time with Paul Rudd in this film, and he got a lot of laughs, and he is a very popular character. And I think it's just this film's going to help. I keep calling it a film, movie, event, whatever you want to call it. I think it's going to help establish Ant-Man a little more and make him a more popular character. But I think that's it. Yeah, that's it, guys. I really did enjoy this event, movie, film. I really did enjoy it, and I had a lot of fun with it. I've seen it twice. I think that's it for me in the cinemas because it is such a long movie. But again, it doesn't really feel like the 3-hour runtime that it's got. I think with a stamp like that, everyone thinks, oh my God, it's so daunting heading into it. When am I going to pee? But no, it's really, really good. And you've all seen it by now. If you're listening to this, then you've definitely seen it. But let me know what you think, guys. What do you think the MCU's got next installed? I am very interested to see. I'm also happy to just rest now, I think. Chuck a Thanos at the end of Infinity War and just relax. So that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. I will be doing more of these more often. I'll get better at them too. This is only my second one. It's a bit difficult doing it by yourself because you're just talking. But yeah, thanks for listening, guys. And I will be doing another one shortly. Hopefully doing The Curse of the Weeping Woman. Get out and see that shortly. A bit of a break before my next film that I'll see in the cinemas, which will be Detective Pikachu. So I'll try and catch up on a few. But yeah, again, thanks for listening, and I love you all 3,000. Goodbye.